What about like a league system in terms of like relegations, promotions? Would that not make it a bit better? Do you reckon?
I think that would be entirely feasible. Like what I've always thought, like one of the biggest things, one of our big problems in the sport is we don't have enough space for mid-tier teams to win. You know, we used to with like the British Cup. You know, you'd have like the upper and lower like tier winners and all of that, and the lower tier winners would get a medal and like, oh, it was grand. Like, I think we need to, you know, really look at it like that. Like, I personally, I would like a league, and I would also like a tournament cup. So, you know, you have the British Cup like it is anyway, and then you have the league. But I also think you could potentially split up the British Cup into leagues where, you know, you like now, like with Dev Cup, you change that to Division 2 or something like that. I mean, personally, I would, you know, a lot of it's about branding, really, making teams actually think, well, we've achieved something. Like, if you go to a tournament and you win one game, you've still won a game. That's still a fantastic achievement. Like, but there's
like remember what it meant for the Northern Angels. Like, we won that game, and it was probably almost the best thing that's ever happened.
Oh God, yeah,
in our lives, you know.
It's such an important thing, and it's such an important thing to be able to mark that. And I think there's so much emphasis put on. Just the top three. That's you know, it's quite bad. Like, personally, what I'd do is with BQC, I would split BQC into four divisions. Then you have a winner for each division. You know, they get medals, they get trophies or whatever, and you send them back home. So then they can go to their university and go, oh, we won
something.
We won Division 3 at the British Quidditch Cup. You know, that's still a fantastic achievement. And what it does is it separates people into their own level of play. Like, you know, it's unrealistic for, like, say, again, like Manchester, they lost a lot of their old players this year. It's unrealistic to look at them and say, well, they're going to go up against Raptors and win BQC. That won't work. That's not going to happen. So what we need to do is we need more opportunity where teams have chances to play at their own levels. This isn't something where we say, oh, you're at this level, you're only ever going to be at this level, you can't advance. This is something where we can go like, oh, well, you won it this time, so now we can advance you up to, you know, the next league or the next thing. You know, give teams opportunity to move up and down, like promote and relegate them. Don't just leave them. Don't just leave them where they are. And I think splitting community and uni teams will do that. It just leaves people where they are. Like, and once you start leaving people and not giving them a chance to move up or down, they start to stagnate. And, you know, that is bad. Like, any team stagnating is a bad thing for the sport.
Well, it's also like, so you remember me in my first year, so I was very competitive. But if that was a case where, you know, so let's say Manchester was a, you know, uni team, so we're forever stuck in the uni team division. My ego would not let me stay. So, like, I'd either, if I wouldn't be able to... So, obviously, after my first year, I would not be considered a player that would, you know, be good enough for very good community teams. So, basically, if I wouldn't have made that jump then, I would have probably quit the sport. So, it's like... And also, like, a lot of these players will actually leave those teams to join... You know, once you started getting good and you feel like, wow, like, I'm not at this level... You'd like, all the uni clubs would now be just... Not even feeder clubs, but what's the, like...
Well, yeah, essentially, there would be feeder clubs, but there would be bleeding players on some of them.
Constantly. Like, you can't even build anything.
I think even worse, in my opinion, are the players who leave university and they've got nowhere to go. Like, there's a lot of players who aren't Raptors standard. There's a lot of players who aren't confident enough to go to other teams or don't want to, you know, some of them just don't want the training burden of some of these teams. And they find solace in actually being in uni teams. You know, like I went to a community team, then went back to a university team because I didn't like certain areas of the community team in terms of sort of like, you know, especially socials and things like that. I found I was more comfortable with going back to Manchester with the university team. And for 3 years, I was far more comfortable being there than I was considering going onto a community team. And I think what we risk is just a massive exodus of old experienced players. You know, so they might not be like Team UK standard players, or they might not be like Raptors standard players and things, but they're still players who have knowledge and understanding about the sport that potentially would be within the uni circuit. And I know there's like this thing like, oh well, four community players can like stay in the uni teams. I don't think that really will cut it, because I think what we're seeing is there's less people each year. There's less people joining the teams. So what we really need to do is think of a way to keep people joining the teams, or keep people in the teams. And I think by splitting it and having like a limit of, you can only have 4 community players, all we're going to do is we're going to lose a load of experienced players, because a lot of them won't be able to get into community teams. A lot of them might not want to join. Some of them won't even have, community teams near enough to them that they can get to. And this idea that, naturally this means that they're all going to start their own community team is unrealistic. Like, I remember...
Well, yeah, like, imagine, like, you move to an area and there's just, like, no one there. So what do you do? Do you stop or do you commute?
Oh, exactly.
Like, when I went to work in Coventry, like, there was... I mean, obviously I'd stay back in Manchester, but, like, there wasn't any... Was there a team next to Coventry?
I think the closest would be... I'm trying to remember where Coventry is now. There's... none of them that I would say are very, very close. But I think starting up the Olympians was a pain in the arse. Now, imagine someone who's never actually been on a committee trying to start it up, or trying to get enough players to join them. But also think of the pressure you've got when you've got this idea that you're now in the community league, you have to be this big grand team. Like,
well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, it just shifts the problem a little bit. Like, if I'm going to be if I'm going to be a bit I forget the word. Like, if I'm going to be a bit greedy here or whatnot. Like, if you look at it where they're saying like, uni teams, they keep on losing to community teams and they're getting bored of it and not liking it and whatnot. Well, what happens when you've got the 4 big community teams and then all the rest? They are just going to be losing to them all the time. Who's going to want to start a new team and jump straight into that? Like, I mean, with the Olympians, we're like, because we haven't had BQC, I'm going off the EQT scores, but we're about 6th in the UK at the moment. In terms of what I would say is the last rankings we got. And even at that point, at being 6th, I would say we have almost, little to no chance of being able to beat any of the top 5. Like, potentially Megs again if they get rid of Andrew. But at the moment, the top 5 is an entire league above us. Now, that leaves us, after that, with, I think, 4 or 5 other community teams that we'd be in a pool with, and that the pool is just too small at the moment. Like, I agree in, like, if there were more teams, then that pool would be, except if there was like 20-30 teams that were all playing against each other, that would be something where that would keep it a bit more interesting for people. But there isn't, and I think it would be a big ask for players coming straight from uni teams to start a community team when they know they're going to have to come in and face teams like that. Especially teams
and just basically sign up to lose constantly. Yeah,
essentially. So I think we're at risk of... Because, I mean, the 2 big things at the moment... Well, the biggest thing is the lack of new players coming into the sport. But doing something like this, we heavily risk old players leaving it. And I think that's dangerous, So I think rather than looking at, should we split the sport or not, we need to be looking at how can we make the sport fairer for... how do we make the sport fairer within tournaments? How do we keep knowledge within teams? I think splitting it just pulls up a lot of problems that could be solved.
It seems like a very short-term solution for people that want to have fun right now. Yeah. And then when they're done, like, it doesn't matter if there's no sport left because they're done,
I in part I do agree with that. There are certain players that I do think have that mentality of, I'm in it for me, this is fun for me, and all that. And I can understand that. When I was a Bangor, and then when I was a Team UK and Raptors, that was my mentality. I was in it for me because I was doing well. I'm enjoying this. I want to win everything. But now looking back, I can see sort of like how much it actually helped me. Like, I can see that all my best friends are from the community. I can see that sort of like new people coming in, they're getting the same things that I used to get out of it. They might not be winning everything, but they're still getting the same feelings for a lot of things. They're still getting the same help and aid and making the same friends. Like, it's a great community that we need to sort of like keep going. We can't just go, well, that's it. I got what I wanted. Now it's time for me to go. Like, we have to think about the next ones who come in. And you know, you either look at it as a sport and something fun for you to do, or you can look at it as something helpful. And the way that I prefer to look at it is it's something that really helps a lot of people and gives people a lot of opportunity. You know, like I would never have gone to Canada if it wasn't for Quidditch. I'm sure.
Why'd you go to Canada?
It was Team UK.
Wait, World Cup or just training?
Global Games. So 2014,
cool.
The Global Games. That was the predecessor to the World Cup, because the Americans used to call their, like, you know, BQC or USQ Cup or whatever it's called now. They used to call that the World Cup because Americans are the world. But yeah, but you know, and I'm sure like players like Jay Holmes and various others, you know, they would never have done the traveling that they've done. They wouldn't have had some of these great opportunities that they've had if it wasn't for Quidditch.
So how do we ensure that the future of the club is secure?
Before someone has to be the captain or the coach, they need to be trained, like as opposed to doing it in retrospect. Because I think with if you look at like Manchester, they had a captain this year who went in for it, like, you know,
Why not?
Yeah, Alex. You know, like he's a decent player. Like he's got a lot of experience coaching in things for like rugby. But at the end of the day, he just didn't really have a passion for the game. So you've had someone who comes in with the rights of like, oh, I've got all these accolades. Yeah. But because there wasn't really a vetting process before the AGM, like people just kind of went, yeah, well, he's talking the talk and all that, let's vote him in. And then I think he just didn't really turn up to trainings, he didn't do that, he left them in the dark. Manchester had to redo all their captaining and their coaching things and all that, like to sort it out, because, as I say, no one was really the go-to person. That everyone was like, well, they've been trained for the last year to do this role. Yeah. I think that's what people need to start doing. You need to look and go, like, it's not a year of, okay, this is just a year of me playing, the next year I'll be captain. It's got to be a year of learning how to be captain or coach. And it's got to be a year of the people who are going to step down teaching how to be a captain or a coach.
Yeah, but the cool thing, it did provide a few, like, because now you look at Manchester, the people that have stuck, they're improving and, like, they're learning a lot of personal skills that they can use out there. So, like, I think Chari's doing a great job. I think she's the captain. So she's doing a good job leading, training. So I think this will help her grow as a person. So
there is that, but this has been forced onto them rather than them planned it. I think Sherry probably would have been the captain this year, but I think, you know, she could have had some time where, you know, she's learning a bit more and she's going into it. Yeah. I think it speaks volumes to her actual her character that she was able to step into the role and do it, and, you know, she did it well for the team. But I think she needed time where, you know, she was learning how to be the captain. But that was taken away from her. And, you know, I think, you know, it's either a case of looking at it and going, this is an internal problem with the with teams and they need to figure it out, or looking at it and going, is there something within the community that we can do? I mean, like, if you look at, we used to have it used to be called the hooch, the hooch thing, which was the training to be a coach system. Now I think it's the I forget what they call it. There's like a coach training thing that QUK put on, and, you know, I did it 1 year.
Well,
I only got partway through.
The QUK one?
Sorry,
the QUK one, or
I can't remember. It's like a coaching qualification.
Okay, yeah.
I started doing it 1 year, but for me, it just wasn't the type of thing I was looking for. It relies a lot on. I was hoping it was going to be more like, sort of like, oh, this is how you run the warm up properly. This is how you put in it. Right. But it was more about tactics, which for me, I'm already, in my opinion, quite versed in. But for a lot of players, that would be it's a very good initiative, and it's a very good thing to go into and have a look at if you're planning on being a coach. And this is something that you should do before you become a coach. You know. But, you know, if it's a case of, you know, having an outside organization coming in and sort of like people going, oh, I'd actually like to do some coaching training to see how I would fare, or because I want to apply for it next year, or even just because they're interested, I think that I think that's a good opportunity, and I think that's something that needs to be presented correctly. Because at the moment, I think there's a lot of players who just kind of feel that, oh, the coach does that, I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
I think if it's presented more as in a, look, you've got a year until you're going to have to do this, start learning, or even this will just generally help you out.
Yeah, but to be fair, that's what I tried to encourage when I was coaching with the Angels. Like so I was the coach basically, and I think at some point I was like, look, guys, you need to be doing the tactic stuff just for yourself as well, because it'll help you. You can bring it back to your clubs. You can just like, it's always good to know stuff.
Oh, it is. But I mean, so like with the Angels again, like I think the Angels are a perfect example of, the balance between competitive and fun. Like originally, like you had me as a beta coach for them, and when you asked me to do it, you were very competitive and like you wanted it. So I got into my head, right, where our aim here is to win. And halfway through not even halfway through, sort of like the training and the season and all that, I ended up leaving the team because I was frustrated. Yeah. And I left because I thought this team is never, there's nothing that I can do for this team that is going to give them a chance at winning. Like I really had to go back to basics with a lot of things with them, and that for me, that frustrated me, because in my mind I was like, well, we're supposed to be competitive, it's Premier League.
That's not what you were expecting.
Yeah, but looking back on it, I was very much in the wrong. What I should have been doing is teaching the basics, is teaching sort of like the classical tactics and sort of like the theory behind it, and actually going into it with the mindset of these players will go back to their teams and potentially, next season this could benefit them, or they'll go on to do this or that. I had the entire wrong attitude, because in my head I was all thinking, let's win this, let's do this, as opposed to actually thinking, well, let's help these players. Let's actually get people playing the game and getting them enjoying it. I had the wrong attitude. And, that's entirely on me. Like, in my head, I potentially sort of like damaged some of the players by just expecting them to perform in a way that they just couldn't. I think people need to have that understanding that, not everyone is going to all of a sudden be like Jan Jacopo, or sort of like come in and be like an Andrew Hull straight off the bat. You have to train them. That's the thing. Like, when you've got a team that they just go give it to the big boy and run, essentially you're just cutting out a lot of the players of the team. Like, it's amazing how much it surprises some people that if you use all of your team, you seem to do better. And, that's a big thing. And I think part of that is also experience of realizing what is and what isn't useful. With the beaters, sometimes, like, you'll see some beaters run around the pitch and they'll knock out an entire team and all that, but then a goal still goes in. And other times you'll see a beater stand there, maybe just threaten someone a little bit, and they make them fumble and you stop the goal. Like, which one of them truly has done their job better? Is it the one who's hit everyone? Or is it the one who actually stopped the goal? But one of them looks more flashy, and, I mean, to be fair, it is more, it's more physically difficult. But one of them either works just as well or better sometimes. So you need to have a look, and rather than going for what some people would say, oh, it's the obvious choice, it's the obvious this or not, you actually have to have a look and see, well, what's actually working? I think for me, the point when I really thought that through was, it's a story from World War II, back in my teen years. When they were designing fighter planes and sort of like designing the armor for fighter planes, they would examine planes that had just been in a dogfight, and they'd have a look at the planes that had come back, and they would go, okay, so there's a load of bullets here, 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 and here, so we need the armor to be thickest here, 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 and here.
Yeah.
However, what they failed to do is have a look and say, well, these are the planes that have come back, and they've got holes here and here and here and here, so that doesn't matter. What matters is the planes that didn't come back have holes where the holes weren't on these planes. If that makes sense. So you have to look at what's not there rather than what is there, and actually figure out, are you being helpful, or are you just going for the obvious answer and potentially just adding more strain and stress that's unneeded?
Yeah. Well, because like even in football, like there was a bunch of stuff like this, because obviously it's a big game, so there's a lot of stats. And that's how, I don't know if you know, do you know how Leicester won the Premier League, like, what, 5 years ago?
No. I know virtually nothing about football.
Okay, well, so basically Leicester won the Premier League like about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't really remember the exact time. But so they signed N'Golo Kante from like a very, very small team. But they looked at his stats and just went, oh, he does the job. So he wasn't flashy, so he just did some runs. He was really good at taking the ball away, but no one knew who he was. And then suddenly, when he was put at a higher level, people were like, wait a minute, he's actually amazing. So it's like one of those things, like if Quidditch had a more in-depth, stats thing where you could be like number of interceptions, number of whatever, kilometers run a game, that sort of stuff, you'd be like, oh, hang on, there's this player in this small team who no one knew about, but they're actually amazing,
Well, I mean, it's a big ask. I mean, that's what I do with my beaters whenever I've got game footage. I do, I make stats for them, and that's like, as I say, like in White Knights, that's why earlier I was able to say, oh, I was getting 120 beats per game, because I used to go through the footage and I would like mark out, oh, okay, how many beats. And at White Knights, like after doing that and getting the thing, again, I was looking at the wrong information. Like I was looking and I was going, well, how many beats did I? Oh, 120, yay, and sort of like how many times this and that. But instead, what I should have been looking at was how many times did I stop the quaffle from being successfully passed? How many times was a goal scored when I was defending it? Things like that. And when you look at that, the numbers really did change, where it went from players who were getting these, ridiculous amounts of beats were, often getting higher goals scored against them. I mean, it also meant, and a lot of times, that they were having higher goals scored for them as well. So you had to sort of like balance it out and figure, well, what is working, what isn't working, and having the stats does help. It's like I'm the beta coach for Team Wales now. We haven't had a training session or anything like that, but I've got a list of sort of like all the stats that I need people who want to get onto the squad to achieve. And, I'm going to be marking that off. I'm going to be having a look at all of them during the plays and all that. And just being able to, like, have a physical number that you can go, well, this is how someone performed, and this is the result of it, does help, and it helps with your decision-making, like, massively.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I found when I was coaching, is that there are certain people that seem to be disheartened by the fact that they're not the fact that they're not well known, but the fact that they're not really appreciated as much. So like, oh, am I doing something wrong? But then you look at the way they play, and sometimes I've noticed that a player's doing amazing stuff. Like they're doing all the dirty work, they're doing all the, not dirty work, but they're doing all the, they're the workhorse of the team, they just do stuff that needs to be done, like the running, the tracking back, that sort of stuff. And it's never noticed. And then I think it's up to the coach at that rate to be like, look, you're doing this role for the team. You're doing an important role for this team. So please don't get discouraged by the fact that people don't know your name, or you don't score 600 points a game or that sort of crap.
That's the thing. I think there's people put a big emphasis on scoring, and that makes everyone else on the team sort of feel like, oh, I'm just a supporting player. But every player has their role to play. I remember myself and Jade Saunders, when we were beta partners for Bangor, the way that I looked at the stats and went, oh, I was getting 120 beats and all that. And the way that we played it into our game is essentially, instead of me changing and thinking, well, let's think about this more tactically and doing it, I then started basically doing trick shots and doing, doing things to get people to look at me. And Jade Saunders would be the one who actually stopped the goals. So I got all this praise. I got onto Team UK and this and that and all that for being flashy and doing this. But the one who was actually stopping the goals was Jade Saunders. So when I was separated from her and, trying to play in my style, it didn't work because I needed my partner who was actually doing the damn work. And you got to look at it like that. You got some players who, oh yeah, they can run this and that and they can score. You take them out of their team and you put them with players that, players who don't do the jobs that their team fill for them. And a lot of the time they do start to falter. I've seen players come into high ranking teams and all that and try and show that, oh yeah, I can run with the big dogs, and just fall on their face because they've not got the support that they've had in other clubs. I think a shoulder chaser or someone on the wings or anything like that is just as important and so valid to the actual game. But people have this like a hierarchy of
But they're not
position. Yeah, it's like saying like, oh, I'm a quarterback, like grand, but you're not playing by yourself, are you? Like,
yeah, obviously. Yeah.
And that's one thing that I like about the beaters is because we can't score, you do get less of between the beaters, especially you get a bit less animosity, where there's no sort of like you're stealing my thunder, you're doing this. You get it has to be teamwork between the beaters.
Man, you say that. I remember playing at the World Cup in Italy, and there was one time I think we were playing. I don't remember who we were playing. No, actually I do. I just don't want to name names. And basically, one of the beaters was doing something, and from the sidelines, their beater partner was just having like a freaking proper go at them, right? Then came on the pitch, literally grabbed the ball away, did something. Like, it was something basic. It was just like, get the ball and just hit someone. Or whatever. Completely missed where the quaffle is as well. So just around the beat. And then as they were running past the bench, you're like, this is how you do it? And I'm like, what? How are you guys teammates? Like,
well, I mean, you always get dickheads everywhere, don't you?
Yeah, that's true.
But,
I mean, you play with me, so of course you
know. True. But yeah, it's one of those things where, you got if you're not friends with your team, then what's the point?
Yeah,
but I
exactly.
think, I think that there is just a big thing to be said. Like with the beaters, if your beaters aren't getting on and if they don't have each other's back, then your team, though people like to think the chasers are are the core of the team, if your beaters aren't there and aren't able to do their job, your team is going to fall apart. Like, you do need your beaters to understand each other. And I think a lot of that with the beaters, because there are only two of you, you do have to understand the other person, so you know where they're going to be. You got to know what they're thinking. Otherwise, you just don't really have any synergy at all in the team. Like if one beater thinks, oh, I'm going to go on a wide winged defense here, and the other one thinks, oh, I'm going to go sort of like attack down the center of the pitch, then that just leaves your chasers entirely open. Like,
yeah.
You need them to be on the same page.
True. Yeah. Oh man. So I'm at the Quidditch pitch now again.
Oh, I'm coming. I'm just because I lost my wings. So.
Oh yeah, of course you did. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's taken me a while. But it's one of the big things when I've got beaters. The biggest thing that I look for first, well, I'd say the biggest thing. The first thing is like if they can throw the damn ball. That's always a big tell for me if I'm gonna let someone in on a squad or not. But the second thing is more what the other beaters think about them. Like, I always ask my beaters their opinion of another beater. I mean, most of the time people are too nice to say, oh, they're shit or whatnot. But, what I'm looking for is if they enjoy their company, if they get along well. Like, if they don't get... If they don't get along well, then I'm just not going to put them on the squad. Because there's no point. You can have the best beater in the world, but if they're not getting on with the team and people can't tell what they're going to do, then there's really just no point.
Yeah, because you got to trust your beater partners kind of almost with your life, sort of.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, like, some people do take it a bit sort of like a bit serious and that, oh, you got to trust them with their life and all that. But I mean, you do have to trust that beater partner at any given point is going to put their face in the way of a ball hitting you. Yeah. Like I've got to make sure that I like my chasers because at any given point in the game, I might just have to take essentially a punch to the face for them. And I've got to do that without hesitating. If I hesitate, I've missed my opportunity to to get in the way to block it. I need to know that I'm not going to hesitate, and to do that, you do need to like your team.
True. Right. So I think I've got maybe 2 questions for you. Are you excited? They're a bit more funny.
Yeah. All right. Let's see.
What the hell is this?
That is a slime cube. Do you want to go?
Oh, well, I haven't seen. Oh, they break apart, don't they?
Yeah, they do. There they come.
There we go. So, oh god, it's kind of hard to focus when. Oh my god, they're tiny.
Yeah, they go for you.
Do they even hit you?
Yeah, if like not very much. But I've only got half a heart.
Do you want food? Here.
You got food. Well, you're holding out on me. Thank you.
Well, you never told me.
I've got chicken as well. I forgot about that.
Oh, what a donut.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to go fight this guy and then I ask you a question at the same time.
Okay.
So, let's go for a funny question.
Yeah.
What is the dumbest rule that used to exist that doesn't exist now, in your opinion?
I don't know if it doesn't exist. Though I think the wording has changed. So it's the offensive language rule. It used to be that you couldn't use hexes from Harry Potter. So you get carded.
What specifically to that?
You could get a red card, like for repeatedly like yelling Avada Kedavra, or like yelling something like stupefy when throwing a ball. Like
what?
Because it was deemed as being aggressive language. So in the actual rule book, it did specifically like say that you couldn't use hexes on the pitch, as it falls under threatening language. So I mean, like in terms of that, I think that's a rule that doesn't exist, because I think now it's just like threatening language or offensive language. But it used to specify that you couldn't use a hex, which I fucking loved. They also used to. Then again, there are also two other rules.
But could you use so was it just like you could not use hexes, but you could use
I think like if you were there and in the middle of the pitch went Wingardium Leviosa, you'd be fine, because that's not like, oh, you're not being aggressive to someone.
Yeah.
But if you were there and you sort of like, threw a ball and went Confringo or something, then they're going like, oh, you had intention there of being threatening and attacking that player. Like,
all right.
It's mad. But I think like there were.
But could you swear before?
No.
Or was just like any offensive language plus the hexes?
Yeah, so like it was, it's like you can't swear or use offensive language or threatening language, and you can't use like any hexes.
Okay. I was gonna say like imagine you could still swear, you can do all this stuff, but you just can't say.
No, you couldn't swear. Like you couldn't do any of that. Like it was basically just don't say anything stupid on the pitch. But
fair.
I mean, there are two other rules. If I am I right to?
Yeah, of course.
Because, I mean, one of them is it used to be mandatory that you used to have to wear a cape.
Well, and if you don't, so it's like the equivalent to having a mouth guard now. If you didn't have a mouth guard, it's straight red. And
it's
if you don't have a cape, it's a straight
proper
red.
equipment on there. That's dangerous play.
No way.
Yeah, luckily, that was before I joined. And then the other one, instead of using like red and yellow cards, they would have a red and yellow wand, and they would hold that up instead.
Oh my goodness!
But like technically, when I joined, that was still a rule. But luckily, in the UK, we never actually enacted it, which is nice.
Okay, that's good. Right. Yeah. So last question:
Ooh.
If you had to come up with a silly rule, but like would have some use, what would it be?
Sorry, mate. Every time you go to ask a question, the internet cuts out. It's just on that bit.
So the question was: so you have to come up with a silly rule, but has like gameplay value. So this kind of has to be a silly but useful rule.
Silly but useful rule. Oh god. To be honest, rather than creating a rule, can I bring back one?
Oh yeah, sure, of course.
So I would bring back the little known rule that beaters can leave the pitch with a bludger.
Okay.
That's the one I bring back, because basically back in the day when the Seekers were able to, when the snitch used to go and hide, so they wouldn't be on the pitch fighting, they would run around anywhere and hide. The Seekers would leave the pitch to chase them. Beaters were allowed to leave the pitch to go and hunt down a Seeker, or sort of like anything of that. But one thing that we used to do is you'd leave the pitch, leave the boundary, run around, and then enter on the other side and take people by surprise. And that used to really throw people off. That was a fun rule. Especially because that rule was enacted for an extra year after the off-pitch seeking ended. So there was really no reason for it to be a rule, but we could still do it.
Okay, so people just forgot to get rid of it.
Yeah, they just forgot to take it out of the rulebook.
Okay. Well, to be fair, it'll be kind of funny, yeah.
It was funny.
Because I can just imagine, like, because the way I like to play is, like, I'd like to attack down the side, because there's less people, obviously. And if there'll be a beater there and I wouldn't be noticing him.
Yeah, they just burst onto the pitch with you.
Yeah. Okay, that's kind of cool. So, man, that was a very long, I think it was like, 2 hours?
Oh, it's getting up to it, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh,
sorry
so I'm going to have
that.
to do a lot. No, it's fine. It was fun. It was a fun
See, I told you boring, I'm terrible for rambling.
But I am going to have to... I mean, to be fair, I might just release like a 2-hour version of this.
Maybe. See if you can just edit it down to the highlights. Take out anything offensive that I just said.
I'll just leave all your answers out and I'll just keep all the whenever I ask a question. Just to make me seem intelligent and you know as much.
Yeah, fair. It's a good plan. I don't think it would take a lot I don't think it would take a lot of convincing people that I didn't know what I was talking about. So, it'd be nice.
Hey, as long as you do it with confidence, people won't notice that you don't know what you're talking about, right?
Oh God, yeah. And this is why I don't hang around with the old guard anymore. Yeah. Anyone who can call me out on any nonsense I say.
Well, that's why we hold you in such great regard, because we don't know otherwise.
Yeah, see,
you could just be spouting nonsense. Right. So I think I'm gonna end the video here. Right. So thanks for having me. You'll be the first video I release.
Lovely being had.
Stay tuned for watching yourself back.
Aye.